Hi, this is Ali Arango of Little Guy CGI, and today I would like to show you how to make a cartoon cat head inside of Blender 2.78c. So let's get started. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe programs or other 3D programs. Okay, while you're in here, click on Add-ons, then put a check mark next to 3D: View: 3D Navigation. Then scroll down. You want to put a check mark next to Mesh: F2, Mesh: Inset Polygon, Mesh: Loop Tools, as well as Mesh: Relax. So you want check marks next to all of these right here. Okay, scroll down further. Okay, there we go. You want to make sure you have a check mark next to Pie Menu, 3D Viewport Pie Menus, as well as Pie Menu: UI, Pie Menu Official. Make sure that you have a check mark next to the 3D View: 3D Navigation as well. Okay, what we want to do in here is we want to manipulate this cube into the shape that we want it to be. When you first come into Blender, you see this cube right here to navigate your way around Blender. If you go to the navigation tab, you can click front, back, left, right, top, bottom. I'll click here to go back to front view to quickly maneuver your view around inside of Blender. If you hold shift as well as the middle mouse button, you can pan your view. If you hold just the middle mouse button, you can rotate your view. Okay, if you're ever concerned about which view you're in, you can look here and Blender will let you see which view you're currently in. When you look here, you can see object mode, which we're currently in. We're going to do most of our work in edit mode. So what we want to do is click here and then click here to go to edit mode. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to front view. We're then going to click here to go to what's called orthographic mode. Right here you can see we're in front. Perspective mode. Perspective mode is kind of like a 3D view mode where you can see more of your object and how it looks, like it's in 3D. We want to actually make our object look like it's in 2D for what we're about to do. So to do that, see where this says view perspective / ortho. We'll click here and now you can see this says front ortho, which stands for orthographic, which basically means kind of like a 2D blueprint like view, which tends to be easy for doing certain things that you do while modeling, like what we're about to do here. So with our cube in front of us in front ortho, we're going to press W. This brings up our specials menu. We then want to select subdivide smooth. So we're going to left click here and you can see our cube is smoothed as well as subdivided. We now want to look over to our left. We can see it says subdivide number of cuts. This menu is associated with our subdivide smooth. We want to take this number of cuts up to 3. Okay, to make to make our modeling easier, we're going to cut this in half. We're going to put a mirror modifier on this, effectively allowing us to do half the amount of work we normally would have to do. So we're going to press Z to go to wireframe. The reason why we came to wireframe is so that when we select this part of our mesh, we select the front as well as the back. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go here. When you look here, you can see vertice, edge, as well as face select. This is how we're going to manipulate our mesh that we're working on. So right now we want to go to face select. We're going to hover here. We're then going to press B for box select. I'm then going to left click and drag a little bit past the halfway point to grab all of this mesh right here. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, the reason why we did this is we're about to put a mirror modifier on here. When you work in 3D, you can essentially cut your work in half when you're working with symmetrical creatures like a cat. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here. We're then going to click here. And we can see our modifiers. When we click that wrench, we entered into our modifier panel. Now we're going to click here for mirror modifier. And what we see here now is this is our actual geometry. This is our mirrored geometry right here. So what we want to do is I'm going to put a check mark right here for clipping. This will keep the mirrored geometry from pulling apart from our actual geometry. I'll then click here so that the mirrored geometry looks just like our actual geometry. Okay, what we're going to do now is press Z and then select solid to go back to a solid view. Here in this solid view, what we want to do is we're still in front orthographic. We're going to go to vertices select. I'm going to hold control as well as hold them in the mouse button and then push up on my mouse to zoom in. See, there's, like you can see, vertices here. Then there's 3 vertices here. We want these 3 vertices right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to left click here. And when we left click here, because this is mirrored, we grab this as well. So we're going to hold shift and then select here. We want right here to pull a chin out. So we're going to click here to go to right view. Currently, the way we're set up, we're controlling just these 3 vertices. We want to be able to affect, for what we're about to do, the vertices, edges, as well as faces around this geometry. So what we're going to do is press O. And when we did that, this blue circle lit up. We turned on our proportional editing tool. So when we press G, which allows us to grab these 3 vertices and move them, we can see this circle of influence for our proportional editing tool. And what we want to do is just pull down like this. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel slightly. And we're basically just getting a chin for our character. So now I'm going to left click to lock that movement in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, now that we have a chin, let's pull the neck out. So we're going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to click here to go to face select. We have our proportional editing on, which we can see here. For now, we want to turn this off. We're going to press O, and you can see this isn't highlighted now. So now this is turned off. So with face select on, we're going to press C. Then we're going to paint these 8 faces right here. And that circle shows that I'm in paint select. I'm going to right click now to get out of paint select. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Let me click right to go right to right view. And what I'm going to do is press E to extrude. And extrude is when you make new geometry. So when I pressed extrude, you can see that line coming out. So I'm just going to pull my mouse and I'm able to extrude this new geometry right along that preview line. I'm then going to left click to lock that extrusion as well as that movement to here in. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. And what we're going to do now is we're going to press S to scale. And then we're going to hold shift and then while holding shift press Z. So when I pressed shift Z, we're going to scale on in every direction except the Z axis. So I'm going to pull out some like that. Hold them in the mouse button to take a look. I'm now going to press A to deselect. I'm now going to hover here. I'm going to hold control, and while holding control, I'm going to press R to put a loop cut in. You can see the preview line right there for the loop cut. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel 1 time, and then I'm going to left click once, and then left click a 2nd time to lock those loop cuts in. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold shift, and then while holding shift, oops, not that, sorry, I'm going to press S, and then while holding shift, I'm going to press Z. So we scale in every direction but shift. I'm then going to take the manipulator, which is this blue, green, and red object, and then push this geometry towards itself. I'm then going to press A to deselect. This right here is Blender's grid floor. I would like to take that away for now, so I'm going to press N to bring up our properties panel. I'm going to go right here to where we say see display. I'm going to click here. Then I'm going to click here to take away this check mark next to this grid floor. I'm then going to press N to take away that properties panel. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, often when I make a face, what I'm thinking about is making basically sunglasses right here. That's kind of how I start off. If you're like sunglasses, what's he talking about? I mean, basically the shape of sunglasses. So I'm going to go to edge select here. I'm going to click here, and then I'm pulling this up like that. And then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, so when I pull this up, when I look here, I kind of see like the bottom shape of sunglasses forming here. That's kind of how it looks to me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure I'm on edge select, which we are. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to left click right here. When I held control after clicking around here, I used a technique in Blender called the shortest path. So when I clicked here and then held control and clicked here, Blender just basically connected what we wanted to select as far as that edge right there. So with that done, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. And then we're going to pull this up some, like this. I'm now going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to click here, pull that up some. I'm going to go to vertice select. Pull this up some like this. And this is kind of what I mean about, my sunglasses right here. And I actually want to have this come down more. So I'm going to do that shortest path again. I'm going to click here, hold control, and then while holding control, I'm going to click here. And then actually push that down some. And now you can see, to me, it kind of looks like, sunglasses is how it looks to me. And that's kind of how I just get the start to when I'm making a face. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to edge select. I'm going to click here. This is basically going to be the bridge of our nose here. So I'm going to press O to turn on our proportional editing tool. If you look here, you can see this is highlighted, letting us know the proportional editing tool is on. I'm now going to press G and then X and then push this geometry like this. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. We're going to click here to go to face select. We're going to click here, hold shift and click here. This is going to become our mouth. So we're going to press E to extrude. I'm then going to right click to lock that extrusion in. It doesn't look like we did anything, but we made new geometry on top of the old geometry. Because we did that, we can shrink down this new geometry by pressing S. So now we have our basic mouth starting to form right here. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We want to, with this mouse selected, push this out like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here to go to edge select. I'm going to click right on the edge of the mouth right here and then pull this back like that. I'm now going to hold the middle mouse button to turn to the side, and then I'm going to pull this to the side like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. So hopefully you can see our face starting to form. What we're going to do now is go to face select. We're going to click here, hold shift. And then while holding shift, click here. We're then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to go to edge select, hold alt, and then click here. I'm going to press E to extrude and then right click to lock in. Doesn't look like we did anything, but we made new geometry right here. We're going to press S to scale that new geometry in like that. And then I held the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to pull straight back like that. I'm going to press S to scale in the X-axis like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Now I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control, and while holding control, I'm going to press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel one time to put another loop cut in. I'm then going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock those loop cuts in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, these lines right here will allow our character to speak. We choose to animate it in the future. I tend to make characters that are made for animation. So we have our basic, mouth set up. We're going to look here. And what we're going to do is click up. We need to be on face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift, and click here. So what we're going to do now is press E to extrude, right click to lock in. We made new geometry. Now we're going to press S to scale down that new geometry. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Just taking a look. I am going to press E to extrude in like this. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to make sure we're still in face select, which we are. I'm going to click here. I'm going to press O to make sure our proportional editing tool is on. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis like this. I'm rolling the mouse wheel to increase the area of influence. And I'm actually going to press G, then shrink the area of influence by rolling the mouse. Right click. And then I'm just going to push this forward some like that. That's because I want these eyes to be more flat. I'm going to press A to deselect now. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hover the mouse here. I'm going to hold control, and while holding control, I'm going to press R. To put a loop cut right here, I'm going to left click once, then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. A lot of times we put loop cuts in, and the loop cuts give us the geometry that we need to make the models that we want to make. Okay, I'm going to press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm then going to click here, hold shift, then click here, and then click here. We're about to bring out the nose. One of the things you can, when you're forming a nose and you're like, well, when you're first learning Blender, you want to make sure that the nose has some distance away from the actual mouth. And normally that is this one loop right here. So I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to press E to extrude on the Y axis like this. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. And you can see there's, some interesting shapes here. What we want to do is go to Edge Select, click here, and basically manually adjust the shape of the nose. Like this. I'm just holding the middle mouse button when I rotate. Okay, as we work, the main thing we want to do is get our basic shapes in, which we're doing. We have our eyes, our nose, our mouth. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. And right now I'm looking to see where and how I want our ears to come in. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold Shift. While holding Shift, click right here, holding the mouse button just to take a look. Then I'm going to press E to extrude and just extrude out just like this. And then I'm going to left click to lock that extrusion in. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale like that. Push forward. Something like that. I'm going to hover the mouse here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to left click one time. Because I left click one time, I can move these loop cuts. I'm going to move this down, something like that. I'm then going to left click a second time, which totally locks that loop cut in. I'm then going to, I held the middle mouse button to turn this side. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. I'm going to pull back something like that. I'm going to click here to go to vertice select. I'm going to click here just to get this manipulator to move out of the way. Then I'm going to click here and pull this back like that. Okay, now I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here, hold shift and click here, here as well as here. I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to right click to get that to stay in place. I'm going to press S to scale. I'm rotating the middle mouse button just so I can see a better view of what I'm doing here. I'm going to press E to extrude and then push in like that. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. We're on face select, which is good. We're going to click here. Cat's chins tend to be very thin. What we're going to do is hold Alt as well as O to turn on the connected proportional editing tool. We're then going to press G. The connected proportional editing tool works very similar to the connected proportional editing tool. It just allows you to not select things that aren't connected with or closely connected with the geometry you currently have selected. So I'm going to press up like this just to get that thin chin that cats tend to have. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we want to do now is I'm going to hold Alt, and while holding Alt, I'm going to hold Shift. I'm then going to click here, here, as well as here. I'm going to hold just Shift and click here now. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. And then I'm going to press G and then Y and push out some. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to shrink the area of influence and then push out some more here. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Just taking a look. Okay, what I'm going to do now is press C for paint select. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to deselect right here. And then I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. What I'm going to do is press S to scale on the Y axis like this. I'm going to pull back because I want this upper lip to be longer than the bottom lip. So I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis again. Like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button. I'm taking a look. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hover here. We're going to hold Control, and while holding Control, we're going to press R to put a loop cut in. We're then going to left click once, and then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to vertice select. We're going to click here. We're going to press G so we can see the area of influence. Mainly is why we press G. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to shrink that area of influence down. I left click to not move anywhere for that particular movement. I mainly did that. I just wanted to see the area of influence. So now I'm going to push in like this here. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is press O. When I pressed that, that made the connected proportional editing tool go back to the regular connected, made the connected proportional editing tool go back to the regular proportional editing tool. I'm going to press O again to turn that off for now. I'm going to click here to go to face select, and then I'm going to click here to select the nose. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel, zoom in. I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to extrude out some like this. I'm going to hold the mouse button to take a look. I'm now going to press S to scale to make this bigger, like that. I'm going to push up some like this. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Okay, now I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold Control. And while holding Control, I'm going to press R. And I want a loop cut right there. So I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. What we're going to do now is hover our mouse here. We're going to hold Control. While holding Control, we're going to press R to put a loop cut right there. We're going to left click once, then left click twice to totally lock that in. We're then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to go to edge select. We're on edge select. So I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, click here, click here. I'm going to pull this down some like that. Click here, click here, click here, click here while holding shift, by the way. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z-axis 0. What that did was that took this line. So I had this line selected, right? I pressed S to scale, and then on the Z-axis, which is up and down 0, and then that flattened this line out. So that's a nice technique to use to flatten lines out. So if you're like, what? I still don't get it. Okay, I'm going to click here, hold shift to pan to view. Okay, now I'm re-holding shift. I'm going to click here, here, as well as here. So I'm about to I'm about to press scale, and then press Z, and then press 0. When I do that, that's going to flatten this line out just like this. So as the scale and the Z-axis 0. And then left click to lock that in, and you can see that line right there is straightened out. With that line being straightened out like that, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to click here for vertice select. I'm then going to click right here. So just so you know where this line is at, this line is the line or edges that goes up to the ear. So we come down here. It's below the eye, but it runs right down from the ear. I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, hold control. So I'm holding shift as well as control, and then while holding both of them, I'm pressing B. And what that did is that allowed me to bevel the vertice right there. So now I have this right here. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to hold control. So now I'm holding shift as well as control. Then I'm going to press B. I'm then going to pull like before to bevel here. Push that down some. Then press S to scale that up to give some space. So with these beveled edges here, I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here. Then I'm going to press E to extrude like this. Then I'm going to press S to scale like that. Then I'm going to click here, hold them in the mouse button, rotate. I'm going to press E to extrude like this. Then I'm going to press S to scale like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we have most of our basic shapes in. I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, with face select on, I'm going to press C. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to shrink the area of influence for the paint select. I'm going to click here to select these 4 faces. I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. I'm going to press O to turn on the proportional editing tool. Then I'm going to press S to scale. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to increase the area of influence. Like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt select right here. Let go of Alt. I held them in the mouse button to turn. Now I'm holding Shift as well as Alt to select there. I let go. Now I'm holding them in the mouse button. I'm going to click here. I'm holding Shift and Alt, holding Shift and Alt, holding Shift and Alt. So now I have the ear all the way selected. I'm going to push down some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here to go to vertice select. I'm going to pull this back some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to take a look. I'm going to hold Shift them in the mouse button to pan. I'm going to click here to go to face select. I'm going to click here. Push that forward some like that. I'm going to click here. Well as, whoops, I was holding Shift down. Held them in the mouse button to rotate them, pull them back some like that. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Okay, we're going to click here, go to object mode. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to right click right here. We're going to make some quick teeth for our cartoon cat. I'm going to hold shift, and while holding shift, I'm going to press A. We're going to bring in a cube. I'm going to left click right here. We're in object mode, so we're going to click here to go to edit mode. Edit mode, there we go. I'm going to press W, and then I'm going to click just subdivide. Just subdivide, not subdivide smooth. When we started off, we did subdivide smooth. I'm clicking just subdivide. However, when I go to the number of cuts, I am going to take this up to 3, similar to how we did when we first made this mesh. Okay, we want to press O to turn off our proportional editing tool. Currently, we can see our cat mesh. I'm going to focus just on this. This is global view, where we can see all of the objects. You know, the object that we're currently in, we're in the edit mode of this object. However, we can still see our mesh. I'm going to click here where it says view global / local to go into local mode. And what this does is the rest of our mesh and, you know, the objects of our scene are still here. We just are focused in on just this object. If you ever are concerned, you open up a file and you're like, where'd everything go? Check right here and see if it says local mode. Then you would just click here to get out of local mode. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to go to front view. So we're in front orthographic local view. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. I'm now going to press Z and then go to wireframe mode. I'm going to press A to deselect. We're on face select, that's good. I'm going to hover here, press B, and then I'm going to go past that center point there a little bit to grab all this. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. I'm then going to click here and then go to the mirror modifier and click here. I'm then going to put a check mark next to clipping and then click here. Okay, I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view here. I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Then left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to top view. What we're going to do here is press R to rotate like this. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold control as well as hold the right mouse button to draw a lasso select right here. I'm then going to press R to rotate right here and then move that up some like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here to go to vertically select. I'm going to hold control as well as hold the right mouse button. I'm then going to press E to extrude like this. This right here, we're going to keep this generally these around the same size. I'm going to take that like that, then press R to rotate like this. This is basically the top part of a mouth, if you're wondering like what is going on. I'm going to press E to extrude like this. I'm going to press R to rotate like that, and then push this over. Again, we're looking for this to be about the same size as this. We want there to be 6 segments here, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to press E to extrude on the Y axis like this. We want to straighten this out, so we're going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0, and then left click to lock that in. We're then going to press E to extrude on the Y axis like this, and then left click to lock that in. We're then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press Z and then select solid view. I'm going to press C for paint select. Oh, let me right click to get out of paint select. We need to be on face select. Now we're going to go to face select by pressing C. We're going to take all this geometry because it's going to be unseen. I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. Then we're going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. We did this because this geometry won't be seen because this is the top part of our gums that our teeth are basically going to be connected to, or with, however you want to put it. I'm going to hold Alt, click here. Well, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. I'm then going to hold Alt, press S. This brings up a special kind of, holding Alt and S makes a special kind of scale that makes things thinner or fatter. So I'm going to pull down to make this fatter. I'm going to left click to lock that in, hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view, and then press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to click here. And I held Alt so we could select all these loops of faces right here. I'm now going to hold Alt, then S to make this fatter like that. I'm then going to left click to lock that in, and then press A to deselect. Okay, so basically here we have the gums formed. What we're going to do is hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. We want to click here, which is our pivot point. We want to change this pivot point from the median point, which is Blender's default pivot point, to individual origins. We're then going to click here, hold Shift, and then click like this to select all of those faces there. Okay, what we're going to do is click here to temporarily not have this clipping activated. Okay, now we're going to hold Alt, and while holding Alt, press E. This brings up our extrude menu. We're then going to click individual faces. I'm then going to right click. We made new geometry. Doesn't look like we did anything. And because we have these individual, the pivot point for individual origins, we'll be able to scale down each of these selected faces. So when we did that extrude, we made these faces basically separated from each other. And then this pivot point, being the individual origins, will allow us to scale down each of these faces. So we're going to press S to scale. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. We unclicked this so we could have the space in the two teeth right here. If this had stayed clicked, then Blender would have not allowed this space to be here. So now that we have our teeth separated, we can click here and turn this clipping back on. Okay, with all these faces selected, what we're going to do now is we're going to hold Control, and while holding Control, we're going to press E. This brings up our Edges menu. We're then going to click Mark Seam. And this just allows us, if we want to put UV mapping on these teeth later on. So I'm going to hold them the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to press E to extrude on the Z axis. When I press Z, we lost our preview line, so I'll just press Z again. And then we'll just bring these teeth down just like this. I'll then left click to lock them in. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, now I'm going to press A to select all of the teeth. With all of the teeth selected, I'm going to hold Shift, then press D. I duplicate the teeth. I just moved my mouse a little bit so I can see the duplication. I'm then going to right click to get the duplicate teeth to stay in place. Now what we're going to do is press S to scale on the Z axis -1, and then left click to lock that scale in. Okay, and when we did that scale, that allowed us to take the duplicate teeth and basically flip them over like this. So now I just take the manipulator and move those teeth down. Okay, when you look here, you can probably see that the shading here looks different from these teeth here. Most likely the normals are not correct. Normals in Blender, as well as other 3D programs, are basically the direction that polygons are supposed to face. Blender shows us that there's an issue with normals by showing this kind of strange looking shading right here. Blender has a nice way of dealing with this easily, and what that is we'll hold Control as well as N, and this will recalculate our normals, and now you can see that shading is normal looking again. We'll then press A to deselect. Okay, because these are the cat for a cartoon, because these are the teeth for a cartoon cat, I want my cat to have prominent canines. So what I'm going to do is hover here, hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm going to press R. I'm then going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in there. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan. I hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button again. Holding Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm now holding Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Holding Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Holding Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in again. I'm on Edge Select. I'm going to click here, as well as here, as well as here, as well as here. Okay, with that selected, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back some. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view some. I'm going to take the green arrow and push forward some like that. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm then going to click here, go to Face Select. I'm then going to click here, hold Shift, and then click here. Okay, I'm going to press S to scale, like that. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom the view. I'm going to hold Shift and the mouse button to pan up. I'm going to push down some like this. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to make sure we're on face select, which we are. I'm going to hover here, press L. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to press Z and then go to wireframe. I'm going to hover here, press B for box select. I'm going to hold Control and press L just to make sure I have all of that geometry there. I'm going to press Z, then go back to solid view. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to pull this back, push this up some, just because I wanted these teeth to be in front of these teeth right here. I'm now going to press, I just held the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press A to deselect. So hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe. I don't want these quite so close. I'm going to press B for box select, click here. Press A to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select. I grabbed the bottom of those teeth right there. I want some of the teeth, some of these teeth right here. Piece of the geometry, so I can hold Control and then press L. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to go to vertice select, try it again, press B, select. There we go. Just wanted to move that down some like that. And I'm going to press A to deselect, then press Z, then go to solid view. Okay, what we're going to do now is press A to select all of our teeth. We're going to hold Control. While holding Control, we're going to press 2. That put a subdivision surface modifier on. You can see the options right here. With all these teeth selected, I'm going to press Z and then select Shade Smooth. I'm then going to click right here as well. Okay, when we put the subdivision surface modifier on our teeth, you can see they got softer. What we can do is we can press Z, go to wireframe, press A to deselect. We'll hover here. Let's make sure we're on face select. We'll hover here. We'll press B for box select. We'll click and drag to grab just the teeth like that. Okay, there's two ways we can harden the teeth. We can do Shift E, or we can put in loop cuts. Or actually, there's three ways. We can actually put in a bevel modifier as well. The bevel modifier is a lot of geometry for not, you know, I think it's unnecessary. We're going to use Control E here. Be aware that when we use Control E, this works well for staying inside of Blender. However, moving to another, exporting out of Blender, you will probably be better off putting in either beveling or putting in loop cuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold Shift E, and when we pull, you can see our teeth look like they're getting harder because we're using something called a mean crease. So we don't want to make the teeth totally square. So I, pulled to the side, but I didn't pull, to the extreme. So now I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to press Z and then select solid. If these marks bother you, these marks let you see where you have what's called a mean crease on, you can press N to open the properties panel, and then you can see this says creases. Just take away that check marker and you won't see the creases. Matter of fact, for the UV seams, you can take those away as well. I'm going to take away the creases. I'm also going to hover here, hold control, and while holding control, I'm going to press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this pivot point from individual origins back to the median point, which is Blender's default pivot point. So I'm just going to left click to do that. Okay, with this loop selected, that edge loop, I'm going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to press S. I'm then going to hold Shift, which gives me finer control. I'm going to pull down. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to move my mouse back up. I'm going to hold Alt, press S, hold Shift, and then pull down like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here, then click here to go to object mode. We're then going to click here to go back to global mode. I'm going to hold Shift and the mouse button to pan. Okay, I'm going to push this over here. I'm looking at that center dot. See the center line here? So I'm kind of using that to position a teeth. I'm going to press S to scale. S to scale. I'm going to click here to go to front orthographic view. You can see when we get a more 3D viewport, the teeth are way too far back. Click here to go back to front view. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to click on our cat mesh. I'm going to click here to go to edit mode. Then I'm going to click here to go to local mode for our cat mesh. And then I'm going to click here to temporarily take away our mirror modifier that's on our cat head mesh. Okay, I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. With edge select on, I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click right here. I'm then going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press E. This brings up our edges menu. I'm then going to click mark seam. So we have a seam on there now. So it will make UV image editing more easier later on. Okay, now I'm going to press E to extrude. Right click to keep that extrusion, the new geometry from that extrusion in the same position. I'm going to press S to scale like that. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press E to extrude on the Y axis and go straight back like that. I'm then going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Y axis 0 and then left click to lock that in. I'm now going to press E to extrude on the Y axis again like that. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, now I'm going to press S to scale. I'm then going to press E to extrude and then right click to get that geometry to stay in place. I'm then going to press S to scale like that. I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Then control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go to vertice, select. I'm going to click right here, this vertice. I'm going to duplicate this vertice. I'm going to hold Shift and D, which duplicate the vertice. I'm then going to right click to get that to jump, get that to stay in place. I'm then going to take the manipulator, push this out to about here. The reason why I did that was I wanted to be able to take this newly, vertice, newly made vertice. It was a duplicate from here. I'm going to select here, 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 and here, and I'm going to fill this in. And then this one vertice should allow me to put 4 faces, to fill in this geometry here. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, click here, click here, click here, and then press F to fill. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so I am going to click here, hold Shift, and click here. The manipulator's getting in the way here, so I'm going to click here to temporarily take away the manipulator. I'm now holding Shift again. I'm then going to click here as well as here. I'm then going to press F to fill in there. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I see I need another vertex here, so I'll click here, hold Shift, then press D. Duplicate. I duplicated that vertex. I'm going to click here to bring the manipulator back. I'm going to push this over here. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here, hold Shift, and click here, here, as well as here. Then press F. Then going to click here, hold Shift, and click here, 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 and then F. Then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here to go to face select. Okay, I'm going to click here, hold Shift, then click here. I'm essentially forming a tongue now. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button, or I'm about to form a tongue. I'm going to press E to extrude like this. I'm going to press S to scale like that. I'm going to press E to extrude again like that. I'm going to press E to extrude again. I'm then going to press S to scale like that. I'm going to face select on. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, click here. I'm holding Shift to do this. I'm deleting this because we have a mirror modifier on it, so this will create the this will create geometry that will give us issues because the mirror modifier, you won't be able to see this anyway. So I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here to go to edge select. We're going to click here, hold Shift, click here, 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 as well as here. We're then going to click here to turn our mirror modifier back on. We're then going to take our manipulator and push this geometry towards itself. We're going to press A to deselect. We're going to click here to go this to vertice select. We'll click here. Then we'll push this geometry towards itself there. We'll then press A to deselect. Okay, we're going to hold Control on the middle mouse button to zoom back. We're going to press A to select our entire cat head mesh. We're going to hold Control. While holding Control, press 2 to put a subdivision surface modifier on here. We're going to press Z and then select Shade Smooth. We're then also going to, for our mirror modifier, not mirror modifier, our subdivision surface modifier options, we're going to click right here. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to hover here, we're going to hold Control, we're going to press R to put a loop cut here to make this eye sharper right there. We're going to go to edge select. We're going to click this nose, push that forward some like that. We'll click here. We'll pull this up some. Click right. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. We'll click right here. I clicked here just to move this manipulator so I can click here. Push this down some like that. I'm going to push this up some, push here, push this out some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, grab this, push this down. I'm going to hover here, press A. While hovering here, I'm going to hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'll move this loop cut up like that. Push this down some like that. I'll go to Face Select. I'll click this, and just we're doing, you know, fairly minor things. I'm going to shift them in the mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm on Face Select. I'm going to hold Alt. Whoop, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, click here. Hold Shift as well as Alt, then click here. I'm going to press C for Paint Select and select all of this geometry that makes up the ears. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. And then I'm going to right click to get out of Paint Select. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale. S to scale again. Press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to hold Alt, then click here. I'm going to hold Alt, then press S. Hold Shift for Fine Control. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like that. Like some. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, then press R. Then I'm going to left click once, then left click again. Put another loop cut in. I'm going to push down some. Click here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold Alt. I'll press S to scale on the Y axis like that. I'm going to hold Alt, press S to scale on the Y axis like that. And click here. Hold Control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. Press A to deselect. Click here, hold Shift, and click here. I'm going to press G, then Z. I'm going to right click. I'm going to press O to turn on the proportional editing tool. I'm going to press Z. This up like that. Click here, press G, then X to move that like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. We're in local mode. I'm going to click here to go back to global mode. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to click here to go to object mode. I'm going to click on these teeth. Bring them forward more like that. I'm going to click back on our head mesh. Go to edit mode. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to move this forward some, like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'm going to move this in some like this. When you put loop cuts in, you can make lines harder around certain edges. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R. So I'm putting a loop cut in, and then I'm moving. And as I move it closer to the edge in front of it, in this case, this edge here gets harder. So I'm going to press A to deselect. A lot of the, or some of the controls we can do, we can go to scope mode to make things a little bit easier. So here we are in scope mode. I want to shut this cat's mouth. So I'm going to click here to go to our tools. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to the inflate brush. I'm going to press F to pull to make the inflate brush bigger. Okay, so I'm going to press F to increase the size of the brush, and I'll just hold and basically inflate this geometry here, which makes the cat's mouth shut. I'll click here, go to the grab brush, holding the mouse button, rotate, and make the muzzle come up higher here. Okay, what we're going to do now is click here, then go to edit mode. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, I'm going to click here. I'm going to press G, pull to the side. That. I'll click here, press G, pull this to the side some. Okay, I'm going to click here, then go back to scoped mode. Drag this up some. Holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. Pull this out something like that. Okay, for here I'm going to press F, then push in. I'm going to hold shift. When I hold shift, my sculpt tool will automatically go to the smooth tool, so I can smooth this out. When I hold shift right here, smooth that out. Just pushing or adjusting the nose some. Just holding the middle mouse button to rotate. Grab here and pull this forward some. I'm gonna roll the mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and the mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold shift and then smooth that out some. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to pull this out to the side some more. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate to the side. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to click here to go to edge select. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate to view. I'm just taking a look. I'm going to click here, press G to move on the Y axis. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to decrease the area of influence. I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here, go to the navigation tab. I'm going to click here to go to right orthographic view. I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to press Z, then go to wireframe. I'm then going to hold control while holding the right mouse button. I'm going to draw a lasso select right here. I'm going to click here and switch to face select. And what I'm going to do now is take the manipulator and pull this back some like this. I'm then going to press Z and then select solid view. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to object mode. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to grab the teeth and just push them back in. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to click back on our main cat mesh. I'm then going to click here, then click here to go back to edit mode. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Okay, I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to take away this check mark here next to clipping. I'm then going to click here. I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm then going to right click to get that new geometry that we made to stay in its place. I'm going to click this eye to temporarily turn off the subdivision surface modifier. Okay, we're about to shrink this face down. Make sure that you turn off the proportional editing tool. Just want to make sure I'm clear. Make sure that you turn off the proportional editing tool. So I'm going to press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. And you can know that the proportional editing tool is turned off by looking here. If this is gray, it's off. If it's blue, it's on. Okay. Okay, with the proportional editing tool turned off, I'm going to press S to scale. And because the clipping here is off, that allowed us to have this separation in between our nostrils here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press S to scale in the Z axis. Then left click to lock in. Now I'm going to press E to extrude on the Y axis. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press S to scale. And then left click to lock that scale in. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. See how our nose is behind this geometry right here. So we want to click here and then push this in so that we can see our nose. I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, here, as well as here. I'm going to bring this forward some. I'm going to try to press R to rotate on the X axis. Pull that up some like that. I just held the middle mouse button to rotate. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to click here to turn back on our subdivision surface modifier. We can see this right here where it looks like squares. That's the shading just needs to be smooth. The reason why it's not smooth most likely is because we just made this new geometry. So we can press A to select everything and then press Z and then select shade smooth, and then we'll press A to deselect. Okay, make sure you put a check mark next to clipping again. Okay, I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift on the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in more. I'm going to make sure I'm on face select. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to push this I'm going to right click because that wasn't effective. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to click this edge right here and then pull that back. I just didn't want that geometry coming through right here. So now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom out. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, what we're going to do now is click here, go to face select. We're then going to click here, hold shift, click here, here, as well as here. We're then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, what we're going to do now is go to Gimp to actually make some cartoon eyes. Okay, this is Gimp. This is a free image editing program. It's very similar to Photoshop. It's very capable. You can go to gimp.org, I believe it is, and download a free copy of Gimp. Here in Gimp, what you want to do is click File, New. We're going to change this width to 1024, and then the height, we're going to change that to 1024, and then click OK. Okay, now we see this area we have to work in. We're going to click here to make it transparent layer. This is your layer panel right here. Layers basically work from top down. What you want to do is click this ellipse selection tool, and we're going to basically draw out the shape of the eye, which is this right here, or I should say the pupil. Okay, what we want to do here is fill this with the color black so we can see this is our color right here that's in the front. So what we can do is we can hold control, and while holding control press the comma key on our keyboard to fill in this black color here. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hold control. While holding control, I'm going to hold shift. While holding control as well as shift, I'm going to press A to deselect here. I'm then going to click here. I'm going to make another transparent layer. I'm then going to click OK. So here's the other transparent layer that we just made. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. So I'm just holding control and rolling my mouse to zoom in. We see this right here, but we're on this layer that's empty. So what we're going to do is go to this selection tool right here, and we're going to draw out this, and I'm just going to pull this right here, and then I'm going to click here to flip these colors. So now this white is in the foreground and this black is in the background. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold control, and then while holding control I'm going to press the comma key. I'm then going to hold control, shift as well as A to deselect that selection. Okay, now what I'm going to do is click here. I'm going to make another transparent layer, and then I'm going to click OK. Okay, with this layer selected, still with this tool, we're going to draw another circle selection. Okay, now what we're going to do is click on this white color here, picking a bluish gray color. I'm then going to click OK. Okay. Try hitting enter. There we go. Okay, with this color selected and with this color in the front, what I'm going to do is hold control, and then while holding control I'm going to press the comma key, and now we have this color here. So now what I'm going to do is hold control. While holding control I'm going to hold shift. While holding control as well as shift I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is click here to make another transparent layer. I'm then going to click OK. With this layer selected and this tool selected, I'm going to draw out a selection. I'm going to move this to the side some. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here, change this to more blue. I have to press enter because of my screen capture software, I'm supposing. So with this color here, with this layer here selected, I'm going to hold control. While holding control I'm going to press the comma key to fill that selection with that color. Okay, now I'm going to hold control. While holding control I'm going to hold shift. While holding control and shift I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click here. I'm going to then select duplicate layer. I'm then going to hide this layer. I'm just doing this in case we don't do this selection right. We can go right back to this layer right here. Okay, so what we want to do is be on this layer, still use this same tool, draw our selection out. I'm going to click here and drag this more to that side. We kind of want this going wide here, so this looks good. And then with this selection here and with this layer here, what we're going to do is press the delete key. I'm then going to hold control. While holding control, hold shift. While holding control and shift, press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to click on the eraser tool. I'm just going to erase this right here. It's the top part. I'm then going to click back on this tool right here. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to click on this layer here. I'm going to right click here. I'm then going to select duplicate layer so we can go back in case we messed this up. So I'm going to click here to hide this layer. Okay, so now with this layer selected, with this tool selected, we're going to drag our selection like this. What I want is this to go higher here, like this right here. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so with this set up like this, with that layer selected, we're going to press our delete key. I'm then going to hold control. While holding control, hold shift. While holding control and shift, I'm going to press A. Okay, I like how this turned out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this background layer. I'm going to click the top layer here. I'm then going to select layer, and then I'm going to select new from visible. So what that did was that combined all of these layers into this one layer right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here to turn the background layer back on. I'm going to hold control and roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to make sure I'm selected on this layer. I'm going to click here to go to the move tool. See where it says pick a layer or guide. I'm going to make sure I have this bottom selected. Move to active layer. I'm going to, let me see, my screen capture. I'm going to click enter. There we go. So I'm going to move this eye like this. I'm going to hide these other layers here. I'm going to right click here, duplicate this layer, then pull this eye over here like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click layer again, and then we're going to go to here, new from visible, and then we're going to click new from visible. So now we have both of the eyes right here on this layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, hide these other layers. I'm going to click file, and I have that top layer selected. I just do that. You don't necessarily need to do this. Whatever you see here should be exported. So I'm going to, you click file, file, export as, and I have this as a PNG. This is fine. This will also work as a JPEG since you don't need transparency for this. And then make sure you know where this file is going to. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to name this textures. Press enter to lock that in. I'm going to click here, highlight this, press backspace. I'm going to press or type out cartoon eyes. then press, I don't have to press anything with that there. Now I'm just going to click export here. These options here are fine. I'm then going to click export again, and now those eyes are exported out of Gimp. Okay, here we are back in Blender. I'm going to click here, then click here to go to object mode. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Okay, with the 3D cursor here, what we want to do is hold shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. We then want to go to mesh and then select plane to bring a plane in. We're then going to press R to rotate on the x-axis 90, then enter to rotate the plane. Okay, I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to press C. When I did that, the 3D cursor went right directly to here in the center of our scene. I'm going to click here to go to front view. With the plane selected, I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to press S. This brings up our snap to menu. I'm then going to choose selection to cursor offset. So now our plane jumped directly here. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to take the manipulator and push the plane up like this. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like that. I'm then going to press S to scale on the X axis like this. Okay, I'm going to push this plane down. It's more like that. With the plane clicked on, I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to press S. I'm then going to choose cursor to select it. I just want to bring the cursor, up a little bit since we clicked the plane to move up some. I'm now going to hold shift, press S. Hold shift, press A, not S. Hold shift, press A to bring this lattice in that we're about to bring the lattice in. So shift A, lattice. Okay, so a left click here is the lattice right here. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I click on the cat's head, press H to temporarily hide that. This lattice will allow us to fairly easily deform this plane here. Basically, we want to do with this lattice is basically make it the shape, fairly close to the plane. So we're going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Hold them in the mouse button to look and see how this is going. I just left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press S to scale on the X axis like this. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Then left click to lock in as far as the scale for the lattice. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Hold shift them in the mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control in the mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis. Then left click to lock that in. I'm going to hold control in the mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, with the lattice selected, when we have a lattice in our scene, you can see we have this option right here. Okay, so what we want to do is click right here. We want to click here. We want to change this to 5. Enter. This right here can stay there at 2. So press enter. I'm going to click here and change this to 4 and press enter for that. So we want 5, 2 as well as 4. When we, did these changes here, we added these different changes to the lattice that will allow us to effectively bend the plane to basically fit in the head in a way that looks correct. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do is parent this plane to our lattice. So I clicked on the plane. I'm going to hold shift. Then going to, while holding shift, click on the lattice. I'm going to hold control, press P. This brings up our set parent to menu. I'm going to select object, keep transform. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click on our plane. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to press W to bring up our subdivide, our specials menu. I'm then going to select subdivide. I'm going to take the number of cuts up to 5. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here, then click here to go back to object mode. Here in object mode with the plane clicked on, I'm going to click on our modifier tab. I'm going to click here. I'm then going to put a lattice modifier on the plane. Okay, so the object that is having the modifier placed on it is the plane, and the plane is getting a lattice modifier put on it. So I'm going to left click so you can see these options here, and these are the options for the lattice modifier on the plane. Okay, now see where it says object here. We're going to click here and then select lattice. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Alt. While holding Alt, press H to bring it back our cat mesh. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click on our lattice. I'm then going to click here and then click here to go to edit mode. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to select right here. Press B again for box select. Select right here. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to pull back like that, holding them in the mouse button to take a look. The lattice needs to be pushed up here, so I'm going to press A to select everything. Push this up like that. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select. Grab here, hold them in the mouse button. Okay. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to select here. Hover here, press B for box select. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button just to get a more better 3D view. I'm going to pull that back. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to select right here. Select right there. I'm going to push down, hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view, then push back. I'm going to press A to select the entire lattice. Push forward some. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to select right here. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Pull back. Press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to select right here. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, press B for box select. Select right there. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to pull up and back. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here, then click here to go to object mode. I'm going to click on our plane. If you're not sure if you're clicked on the plane, I'm going to pull this down. You can't see the plane right here, so you can click here, and because the plane is parented to the lattice, it's underneath the lattice, so the plane is currently selected on. So with it currently selected, I'm going to click here, then click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to press A to select the plane. I'm going to press Z and then select shade smooth. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here. Go to object mode. I'm then going to click here. This right here is our workspace. We're currently in a default Blender workspace. We're going to click here. We can see all these different workspaces that we have to work in. I'm going to click UV editing. And now we can see this workspace here. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, here in the UV editing mode, our UV editing workspace, what we're going to do is click on our plane, click here, then click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to press A to select the plane. If you can see through the plane and you don't particularly like that, you can click here. With this plane selected, we're going to press U. This brings up our UV mapping menu. We are then going to select Unwrap. What it means when you unwrap something, it's basically when you have a 3D object, think of this as being like a table. When you unwrap something, you take the 3D object and you set it up so that it can be laid out flat, so you can put images on the 3D object in the way that, you know, hopefully you want them to go on. Since we are dealing with a flat plane, as far as unwrapping it, it's pretty simple because it's already flat for the most part. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to click open. We then want to navigate our way to where our image texture is made. The one that we did in Gimp, so I can click here and I can see what I'm actually looking at. So I'm going to left click here and then I'm going to click open image. Okay, I'm going to move my mouse over this window and roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. You can see there's the eyes that we made right there. And now that we have the eyes here, I'm going to just press A to deselect. What we are going to do is we are going to click here and then click here to go back to our default workspace. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here to go back to object mode. Okay, so we weren't too concerned about positioning our eyes in the UV editing workspace because we're going to use a empty to project the eyes back onto this plane here. The reason why we're going to do that is that's going to give us the ability to have a simple way of rigging the eyes so we can have the eyes look where we want them to look. Okay, so I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to click here to go to front orthographic view. If you're in front perspective view, you can click here. This will take you into orthographic view. I came here because I wanted to see that this 3D cursor was right here, directly in the center. Now that I know it's there, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift, and while holding Shift, I'm going to press A. I'm then going to select Empty. I'm going to left click here so I can see my options for what type of empty I want. I'm going to choose this plain accesses here. So I click there. Now we have empty. I'm going to take this manipulator and push the empty out here like this. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to take the manipulator and push this back some more like that. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to get a view kind of like this. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, this is our properties panel here. If you don't see this open, you can press the N key and this will open up. I'm going to put a check mark right here and we can see, you know, here's our UV map. However, don't be concerned about this right now. We're going to project from here back onto there. So what we want to do is click on our plane. We can see here that we're clicked on our plane. Okay, so what you want to do with the plane being selected, you know, we clicked on it, so it's selected, is you want to click here, and then what you want to do is add a UV project modifier to your plane. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to click here. We have our cartoon eyes here, so we're going to left click there. We then want to put a check mark here where it says override image. So we're going to click here. We're then going to click here and we want to select our empty. So I'm going to left click here. Okay, what we want to do now is I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view just so I can click the empty without being concerned that I'm clicking on anything else. I'm going to click on the empty, and then with the empty selected, I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis 90, and then press enter to lock that in. I'm then going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. So you can see like multiple eyes here. Don't be concerned about that. Now, with this set up like this, what you want to do is press S to scale. Then I'll take my manipulator to push down like this. And what you can see now is we have our cat eyes here. We can manipulate somewhat how the cat eyes look by how we scale this empty. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on our cat mesh. We have this pretty thick space right here in between our eyes. We want our eyes to be able to, look around, move, as we move our empty, we'll be able to move the eyes around. Okay, so with our cat mesh selected on, I'm going to click here. I'm then going to click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to select right here. Then I'm going to press S to scale on the x-axis. That's interesting. Here, I'm holding shift to click here. I'm going to press S to scale on the x-axis here. Push in some as well. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to click here, then go to object mode. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click on our lattice. You can see the lattice right here. I'm going to click here so that we don't have to look at the lattice because we really don't have to, we really don't need to select it for now. So now when we click here, when we press G, you can see that we can have our cat's eyes look around and, we can control which direction that the cat is looking towards. So I'm going to right click to get this to jump right back into place. Okay, not too long ago I learned about rendering and doing animations in Blender's viewport instead of doing a traditional route of rendering. Typically what I do is I look at the models that I look at now in material mode. So when we click here and then click materials, we can see our mesh here with the light provided here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to, with this light selected, I'm going to click here for my options for the light. I'm going to click here to change this light to a sunlight. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm going to go to empty. Then I'm going to select cube. I'm then going to, with the empty select, I'm going to press S to scale this empty down. I'm going to click on our light. I'm going to hold shift. While holding shift, I'm going to click the cube. I'm then going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press T. This brings up a make track menu. I'm then going to select tracked to constraint. Okay, and what that did was now when I push this empty, this light will track towards that empty. So I'm going to push this here. I'm going to take this lamp and lift this up here like that. And you can see here that we can't see our texture. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on our plane. You can see here we're selected on our plane. I'm going to go to material. I'm going to click new. I'm going to look where it says specular here. Our specular is basically the shininess of our material. I'm going to click here. I'm then going to press 0 and then enter so that there's no shininess on our plane. I'm then going to click here for texture. I'm then going to click new. I'm then going to click here. We can see here's the image for our cartoon eyes. I'm going to click here now, and now we can see our eyes right there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here, then click here to go back to solid mode. I'm going to click on our cat head mesh. I'm then going to click here, go to edit mode. We're going to put some UV seams. I'm just holding the middle mouse button to rotate, holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. We're going to put some seams on our cat so we can paint our cat. So I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold shift and click here. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. Because I am clicked here, I'm going to hold control, then click here. Basically what happened is I used Blender's shortest path because I was clicked there, then I held control and clicked here. Just rotated, held the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Blender, made a path from there to here. I'm about to do the same thing again here. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Now I'm going to hold control and then click here. So Blender, selected that whole line. With that whole line selected, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control, then press E. This brought up our edges menu. I'm then going to select mark seam. I'm then going to press A to deselect. You put seams in objects inside of Blender basically to be able to lay out your 3D model flat so you can put colors on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold shift, click here. I'm going to hold control, click here. Then I'm going to hold control. While holding control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. I'm then going to select mark seam. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, now with edge select on, I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, hold the mouse button, rotate, hold shift, click here, still holding shift, clicking here, holding middle mouse button, rotate, holding shift, and then clicking, the rest to select that. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm then going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press E. This brings up our edges menu. I'm then going to select mark seam. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, when you're laying out your UV seams, you're basically trying to put seams in places where, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of 3D-ness to your mesh. And you're doing that just so that your mesh basically lays out as easily as possible flat, so it makes it easy to lay it out flat. So I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. It's fairly easy to UV unmap, see how things look, and if you don't like how they look as far as your UV seams, to put more seams in and then unwrap again. Okay, as far as our mesh here, I would like to add some more edges in to help make some of the edges sharper. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hover here. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to press R. I'm going to move the mouse so I have a new edge loop there. I'm going to move that edge loop forward. I'm then going to left click to lock that edge loop in. Okay, what I'm going to do now is press A to deselect. I'm then going to hold Alt, and then while holding Alt, I'm going to click here. I'm then going to hold Control. While holding Control, I'm going to press E. This brought up our edges menu. I'm then going to select mark seam. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here, go to object mode. I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Then I'm going to click here. I'm going to change from our default workspace to our UV editing workspace. I'm going to click here, then click here to go to edit mode. I'm going to press A to select all of our cat mesh. We see these eyes right here. Don't be concerned about that. I'm going to click X to get those eyes out of our view. I'm then going to press U with all of our mesh selected, for our cat mesh. I'm then going to select unwrap. And now we can see right here our unwrap. And we can see there's some issues right here where you can see like this bunched up, things that are bunched up here. This isn't, great. This is our ears right here. This right here, I can tell, are, right here. Okay, most likely this is the inside of the mouth. So what we can do for the ears, for instance, is we can, depending on, you want to be careful as far as your UV seams for how they look, as far as the final result. You want to tend to hide them if you can. However, you can sit there, and if you see an area like, we have these ears here, you can just go around the ears, right? So we have the ears all the way around, right? So we're trying to get this to lay out flat. So we hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. We click Mark Seam, right? So we have this separate. Now what we can do is to try to help lay this out flat, we can grab here, and basically what this is going to do is this will split this part from this part. So we'll hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. Then we'll select Mark Seam. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. So what we can do now that we have this, see how we select this and it still looks the same here. Now what we can do is press U and then unwrap again, and now we see the changes of our new UV unwrap. This looks very strange there from us doing that. Different things, like as far as like the nose here, I wouldn't mind having a seam here, so I'm going to hold Alt, select all the way around the nose like that. I'm going to hold Control, press E, select Mark Seam, press A, and see I'm just trying multiple ways of unwrapping this, and now by doing the nose, this looks more like how it looked before. The ears still aren't particularly great, but they're better than before. You can keep UV unwrapping until you get the results you want, depending on how much detail you're working with as far as your texture. You can keep trying to improve it. For now, for what we're about to do, it's a cartoon like character, so I think we're good with this. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. We want to go to texture paint. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here. I'm then going to click here to go to texture paint mode. Basically what you see right here, everything turned white because what Blender wants is it wants something to be able to paint on. What I mean by that is, see this right here, this is a representation of this mesh here. This transparency here, basically there's no image to paint on. That's why you see this transparency here. All right, so Blender wants a image to paint on. That's what's going on where it's saying add paint slot, missing data. It's basically saying missing data because it wants something to paint on. So what we can do is we can click here and then click diffuse color. This pops up, add texture paint slot. I'm going to click here. I'm going to name this base cat color. Okay, basically this color is the main color you want the cat to be. I'm going to click here. It looks, you click here and it's like, this is all black. Why is this all black? Make this go higher and you'll be able to see your colors. I want the cat to be kind of like an orange color. So I just, move here like that. And then once I have the color here, I click OK. Now the cat is basically that color, and now we can see that that missing data and all of that, went away here. Okay, texture paint can be a little confusing because we have the color here. We don't have anything, showing like a warning sign here. However, when we look here, we still see this transparentness here. We don't see this color, which is what we should see, right? So what we can do is we can click here. See right here, base cat color. So now we click this, roll our mouse wheel back, and now there we go. So now we're actually seeing the color that's on here. So oh, by the way, as far as like why we can't see the eyes, if you click here, then click material, there's your eyes right there. So what's cool is we can sit here and we can, paint just like we have a paintbrush now. So what I want to do is I want to click a white color. So I'm going to press F. When I push in, I can make this smaller. When I press F and pull the other direction, I can make this bigger. I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to start painting here. I'm just holding the mouse button to rotate the view. Be aware that as I paint here, you can see it, happening over here. The paint being applied over here. Press F and push in. Oh, by the way, be aware of this. This is our strength. So our strength, when you start off in Blender, the strength is 0.7000. You might want to take this all the way up, depending on what you're planning to do. So see where it says 1.000. This always looks like 1000 to me. This is basically 100 now. So 100 strength for the color that we're using to paint here. When you paint, there's no erase button. So what you would do is if you make a mistake, you just grab this color and just, paint over that color. That's how you, quote unquote, kind of erase. I'm going to click here, go to solid view so I can see without the shadow. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to zoom in and paint in here. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press F. Make my area of influence from my brush smaller. See this right here? I didn't want this. So what I can do here is I can hover here, press S, and then now I have this color, and then I'll just paint over it. So S works like a eyedropper, basically, so you kind of do that instead of erasing. Just rolling the mouse wheel in and out. I'm going to click here, I'm going to go down, go like a darker brown. For the nose is what I'm thinking. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, don't be alarmed. The video did not just glitch. I I had to do a edit. I had to go back, and when I went back, one of the important things here is that the work that you just saw is done right here. See this right here? This little sign. When you see this, or this little symbol, when you see this symbol here, this shows you that this image isn't saved. This image is different from the Blender file, right? So when I click File, Save As, I'm saving the Blender file. To save this image, I actually have to go to Image, Save As Image to save this file, right? I saved the image, the work that you just saw me doing, as I changed it from Basecat 1 to actual work 1, right? So we need to set this up. So I'm gonna show you how to get that back and show you how to set this up, which had to be done anyway. So I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna go to default. Here's our base cat mesh that we started with. See this right here where it says image, material. We click here. See where it says type none. I click on this diffuse color. I have this image or movie, right? I want to go down here. I want to change this to a second. Okay. I want to click here. I want to click on textures. This is where I saved it, actual cat 1. You can see like here's the painted work we did so far. I click on this. I click OK. Okay, let's see. Let me get rid of that. Click new. Open textures, actual cat 1. There we go. Okay. So here's it. Here it is right here. So now it's applied here the texture that we have so far, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. I'm then going to go back to UV editing. Here's the base cat, color. I'm going to click here and click actual work 1. So make sure that the work that you have, you click image, save as image. You can either name it the base cat work or name it another name like I did, actual cat 1. Click save the image. If you don't do this, you won't have your image saved here. Okay. Okay, so I think I did color the nose some more since the last edit. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to make this a little lighter for that inside part of the nose. Okay, I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to the material tab. So we have our base cat right here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go back to the default workspace right here. Okay, we have our our eye texture in, our some paint in. We can do minor modifications here, even though we have colors on here. So I'm going to zoom in. What I mean is I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm then going to click here, go to oops, I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to material mode. With the cat mesh selected, I'm going to click here, go to edit mode. And what I mean is we can make changes to our mesh even though we have our color on, and as long as they're not major changes, we should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to scoped mode, holding shift and middle mouse button the pan. I'm going to press F to increase the size of my brush. I'm going to go here, where the grab brush. I'm going to change the shape of the nose somewhat. And I kept it in material node. I just wanted you to see that, we can change things, and, the mesh will change with it. Let me click here. I'm going to go to, actually, I want to stay here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to solid view. Go back to edit mode. Be careful. You do want to be careful. I wanted the nose to be a little bit wider. I want there to be a harder point right here, so I'm going to push this edge closer to that edge right there. Okay, I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom back some. I'm going to press A to select everything, or A to, now I selected everything. Now I'm going to press A to deselect everything. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold Alt, click here, hold Shift as well as Alt, click here. Then I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis like that. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, hold the middle mouse button, rotate, click here, push this in some like that. Click here, push that in some. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we're almost through this. I'm going to show you how to put some expressions on your cat's face. So I'm going to click here, go to object mode. Here in object mode with our cat mesh selected on, we're going to click here. The way we're going to set up facial expressions for our cat is we're going to use shape keys. Basically, these are shape keys right here. You want to click here. This first thing you see here, this basis, this is basically with everything as far as a shape key starts off as, which is here. So you don't want to really mess with this basis. You want to just click here, have this basis here, then you want to click here. Now this is what we want to change. So I recommend one of the first things you do is open up the cat's mouth. So we're going to click here and we're going to name this mouth open and then press enter for that name. So now that we have this saying mouth open, what we want to do is click here and then go to edit mode. And now we'll actually make the changes that will, make this shape key be different from our basis. Okay, so what we're going to do here is let's click on our modifier button. Let's click here so we can see the inside part of our mouth here. We're going to go to our navigation tab. We're going to go to view global/local. We're in global view, which means we can see here as well as our teeth. We're going to click local so we see just our cat mesh here. Okay, so here I'm going to hold control. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. We have a tongue here, so we want to try to select that tongue. So I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here. This isn't the tongue. As far as I can see, I'm going to press H. Click here, H, click here, H. What I'm trying to do is select what's not the tongue to hide it. So I'm going to press H to hide those pieces of mesh right there. Okay, now we can, for the most part, see the tongue. So what we want to do is I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to click here, hold shift, click here, click here, click here, hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view, click here, hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view, click here, here, here. And I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan, control the middle mouse button to zoom in. We want to click here. Okay, I think we have the whole tongue. I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, now that we have the tongue selected, we want to make the tongue be easy to select. So what we're going to do is click here. See where it says vertex groups? We're going to click this plus button here. We see this pop up. We're going to click here. We're going to name this tongue. Then press enter to lock that name in. With these faces here selected, we're going to click assign. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to press A to deselect. We're going to hold Alt while holding Alt, press H to bring back the hidden geometry of the other pieces of the inside of our mouth. So I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is with this tongue vertex group here, I'm going to click select. Then I'm going to press H to hide our tongue. In Blender, hiding things is a pretty decent way of not affecting them when we grab other things. So what we're going to do is hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're then going to press C for paint select, and we're going to paint all of this right here. Okay, so we have the outside part. I'm going to hold shift and select there. Now we want this inside part, so we're going to press C for paint select, and we're going to paint this bottom part of this inside part right here. We see this right here. We're going to hold shift and click that as well. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. We actually don't want all this here, so I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to deselect right here. And then I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. Okay, since we have this selected, I'm going to click here. I'm going to make a new vertex group. I'm going to, with this selected, I'm going to double click here to rename this. I'm going to name this lower jaw, then press enter. Remember, you have to, when you make the vertex group, remember to click assign. Don't just make it and think it's Blender knows what this is. You have to click assign. So I'm clicking assign. Now I see it selected out here. I hold the middle mouse button. I see we have the internal part of the mouth as well. So good. Okay, with this geometry selected, I'm rolling the middle mouse button to zoom back. This is a nice place to reshape our geometry as well. I want my top lip to be out further than the bottom lip. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to right view. We are going to right click right here to put the 3D cursor right there. We're then going to go to this pivot point. Blender's default pivot point is the medium point. We want to click here to change it to the 3D cursor. Okay, so with the 3D cursor being set as the pivot point, what I'm going to do is press S to scale on the Y axis. Now I was able to reshape this bottom part of the mouth to make this, not come out as far as that top lip right there. Okay, since we did that, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. What we're going to do is we're going to click here, go back to our global view. We want to see how our teeth are being affected by us moving this lower jaw. It doesn't look like they're really affected. That's good. So we're going to click here and go back to local view again. We're then going to click here to go back to the right view. I'm then going to click here to put the 3D cursor right here. Okay, so what we're going to do with the 3D cursor here is we're going to press R to rotate on the X axis like this. And our mouth looks like it opened up fairly well. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to click here, then click here to have our mirror modifier show again. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. Right here, this looks a little strange, so I'm going to click here, the face right there. I'm going to pull to the side. I'm going to click here and then pull to the side here. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Alt as well as H to unhide our tongue. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to push in like that. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis like this. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis to thin the tongue out some more. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here to go back to global view. Take a look at our teeth. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Okay, I'm going to click here to go to object mode. With our cat mesh clicked on, I'm going to click here. Then I'm going to click on the teeth. I'm going to click here and change the pivot point from the 3D cursor back to the median point. I'm going to push the teeth forward like that. Push them even more forward. I'm going to push them down. And let's see. With our cat mesh, when I click here to turn the mirror modifier back on, then when I click here and then click here, then here, looking at the top teeth is really what I'm paying attention to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click here. I'm going to go to object mode. This is the shape that we have so far with this mouth open. So I'm going to take this value up. And now the mouth will actually open and stay open. So now I'm going to click on the teeth, push them down. And I'm paying attention to these top teeth more than the bottom teeth. The top teeth look pretty decent where they're at right now. I'm going to click here, go to wireframe view. These teeth look like they can be longer, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, go to edit mode for the teeth. I'm going to press A to select them. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Pull the teeth back some. I press S to scale on the Y axis. Again, pull the teeth back some like that. I'm going to press A to deselect, Z, go to solid view. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is click here, go to object mode. Okay, here in object mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click back on our cat mesh. I'm going to click back on our basis. Actually, let me click on our mouth open. I'm going to shut the mouth open. I'm going to click on our bases. I'm going to click here on our cat. I'm going to click here, go to edit mode. I'm going to go to face select. We're on face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift, and I'm going to grab this and pull this down. Something like that. I'm going to click here, push that forward, something like that. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Now what I'm going to do is with our cat mesh clicked on, I'm going to click on our modifier panel. I'm going to click here to temporarily take away the mirror modifier or make it look like it's been taken away, I'm going to click on our teeth. And what I'm going to do for them is for their mirror modifier, as well as their subdivision surface modifier, I'm going to click here to take away that. The mirror modifier being that, I'm going to then click here to take away the subdivision surface modifier for our teeth. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm then going to press A to deselect the teeth. I'm going to press A to select everything and then A to select nothing, so I know that nothing is selected. Now I'm going to left click and select on our teeth. Okay, so with our teeth selected first, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and then I'm going to select our cat mesh second. And then with our mesh object selected in that order, I'm going to hold control, and while holding control, I'm going to press J. What I did was I joined the teeth to our cat mesh. So now our teeth as well as our cat mesh are now one object. When I joined the teeth to the head mesh, the teeth took on the modifiers that the head mesh currently has on it, which are the mirror modifier as well as the subdivision surface modifier. So with the head mesh selected, I'm going to click here now. Okay, now I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. When we click there, we brought our mirror modifier back on. Now what I'm going to do is click here. I'm going to go to our mouth open shape key. I'm going to click here to open our mouth open shape key. So now with that done, what we want to do is click here, then click here to go to edit mode. And now what we want to do, I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control of the middle mouse button to zoom in. We want to select all of our bottom teeth here. If you have hold the middle mouse button to rotate. If you have some issues with selecting the teeth, you can zoom in to make things easier. You can also click here and then click here to temporarily turn off that mirror modifier. Over here, L, holding the middle mouse button to rotate. So now I'm going to click here to turn the mirror modifier back on. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here to go to a right orthographic view. I'm going to right click here. I'm then going to click here on our pivot point option. I'm going to change the pivot point from Blender's default pivot point, which is the median point, to the 3D cursor. So with our bottom teeth selected, the 3D cursor being here, and the pivot point being changed to the 3D cursor, I'm going to press R to rotate on the X-axis like this. I'm going to take the manipulator and pull back up some like that. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I am going to go to Edge Select. I'm going to click here, change the pivot point from Blender's default, from the 3D cursor to Blender's default pivot point, which is the median point. Push that forward some. I'm going to click here, push this forward some, push that down some. I'll click here, push that down some. I'll click here, go to face select, pull that up some. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is press C for paint select. I'm going to select all these faces right here, right click to get out of paint select, and press H to hide those faces. Then I'm going to hover here, press L, I'm going to hover here, press L, L. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate again. I'm going to press L, 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 L. Okay, I'm going to hover here, press L, 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 L. Okay, now I'm going to click here with lower jaw here. I'm going to click select. I'm going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, I'm going to press H. When we bring something back from being hidden, typically it's selected. In this case, we can easily press C, hold the middle mouse button to deselect what was just brought back. I'm now going to click here to go to right view. I'm going to click here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to change the pivot point from the default pivot point, which is medium point, to Blender's 3D cursor option. I'm going to right click here. Then I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis like that. Okay, I'm going to hold Control on the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click on our tongue, click Select, hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis like that. Hold the middle mouse button, take a look. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to click here, change the pivot point from the 3D cursor back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. And then I'm going to click here, go to object mode. Let's click on our cat mesh and then see how this looks. Okay, and that allows us to set up for a lot of different facial expressions right there. Okay, we're going to click here. We're going to add a new shape key. We're going to double click here. We're going to name this Blink, and then press enter to lock that in. And then what we're going to do is click here, then go to edit mode. We're going to click here, hold shift, click here. We're going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in, hold shift and middle mouse button to pan, hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. We're then going to hold shift to click here, as well as here. Okay, I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to pan the view. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, we're going to press O. This turned on our connected proportional editing tool. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. So we'll just push in. I'm going to roll the wheel, the mouse wheel, like that. I'm going to left click like that. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like that. I'm then going to press S to scale on the Z axis like that. I'm then going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to click here, press G, press Z, move that down. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to click here, hold shift to click here, pull that out some, pull this up some. I'm going to click here. Click here. Okay, I'm going to hold control on the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to click here. Push that forward something like that. Click here. Forward, down, something like that. Go to face select, I'll click here. Press G, decrease the area of influence. Go to edge select, click here. On the mouse wheel, zoom back. What I'm trying to do is not have these vertices like cross over. Come down, but not, you know, like cross over other edges. Okay, so I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button. Hold Control as well as the middle mouse button again. I'm going to click here. Go to Object Mode. Here's our blink shape key. So I'm going to see how it looks. It's a little bunched up right there. I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to click here. Go to Edit Mode. Okay, I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here, hold shift and click here. I'm then going to go to tools and select smooth vertex. I'm then going to, I find that when you have areas and you're struggling a little bit with it bunching up, what you can do is when you're dealing with the shape key here, we're going to go back to object mode. Then here in object mode, we're going to see this pen here. We're going to click that. Now we're going to click edit mode, and then we're going to click here and go to scope mode. So in scope mode, if you click inflate, deflate, I'm going to press F to increase my brush. You can get a pretty decent, you know, eye shut without you know, with a decent amount of smoothness. I'm going to hold shift, click here, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to click here to go back to object mode. I'm then going to unclick this pen, take this value back down, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now is click here. Let's give them a serious look. So serious, we'll name it. We'll then click here, go to edit mode. We'll click right here. We'll press O, we'll press G, Z. We'll roll the mouse wheel. Maybe not too much. We'll click here, press G, Z. Let's go to edge select, click here, press G, Z. Grab here, push this just so that plane isn't coming out. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, we'll click here, go back to object mode. Excellent. Okay, we'll click here, We'll double click here. We'll name this concern. We'll then click here, then go to edit mode. Okay, for here, we'll go to face select. We'll click here. We'll hold Alt, then press O to turn this to connected proportional editing. We'll press G and then Z. We'll kind of take this up like this. That's rolling the mouse wheel right there. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, now we'll click here, come back to object mode. Excellent. Let's have them small, so we'll click here, double click here, name this small, then press enter to lock that name in. We'll then click here and then go to edit mode. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to click here, here, as well as here. I'm going to press G, then Y to pull back some. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press R and then Y to rotate some, pull up, pull out, push forward, pull out more, hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, we'll click here, go to object mode. Good. So let's see when we have the mouth open. See how our small works combined. You can combine shape keys. Definitely doesn't particularly look like it's smiling with the mouth open, so let's try shutting the mouth some. Somewhat of a smile. If we put the concern, sometimes can make a smile look more sincere. Okay, I'm going to click here and then click here to go to material mode. Let's open up the mouth. Okay. Obviously that does not look right. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. When I right click here, I'm going to hold Shift. While holding Shift, I'm going to press A to bring in a lamp. I'm going to bring in a point lamp. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in some more. Control the middle mouse button to zoom in more. Click here. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to make sure we're on face select, which we are. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L. I'm then going to go to materials. I'm going to click plus. I'm going to click new. I'm going to click assign. I'm just putting a basic material in here. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L. Hover here, press L. L, 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 as well as L. Okay, with all this selected, I'm going to hold Shift. While holding Shift, I'm going to press H. And what that does is that lets us hide everything other than what we have selected. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to press L. I'm then going to press H to hide the gums. I'm going to press A to select the teeth. I'm then going to click here, click New, click here, take this up so the teeth are white, and then I'm going to click Assign. Then going to press A to deselect, then hold Alt. While I'm holding Alt, I'm going to press H to bring back our previously hidden geometry. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to click here. I'm going to, with the tongue selected, I'm going to click Select. I'm going to press H to hide the tongue. I am going to press O to take off the connected proportional editing. I'm going to press O again to turn off proportional editing altogether. I'm going to press C. I'm going to paint here. Paint here. I'm going to right click to get out of paint select. I'm going to go to the material tab. I'm going to click here, then click Assign. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to click here, pull here, click here, pull there. I'll then press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to press C for paint select, paint here. I'm going to right click out of paint select. I'm going to hover here, then press L. With all that selected, I'm going to click here and then click Assign. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to press A to select everything, A to deselect everything. I'm going to hover here, press L, then press H. Then going to hover here, press L, and then press H. Hover here, press L, then H. I'm going to hover here, press L, then H. Okay, I'm going to press Z, go to wireframe, select all right here. I'm going to hold Control, and then while holding Control, press L. Then I'm going to press H to hide all of that geometry. I'm going to hover here, press L, then press H. Okay, I can see the nose right there, so I'm gonna hold Control. While holding Control, I'm gonna hold the right mouse button. This allows me to draw a lasso select. I'm gonna draw a lasso select around the teeth right here. I'm then gonna click here and then click here to assign that color to the teeth. I'm gonna press A to deselect. I'm then gonna hold Alt, and while holding Alt, I'm gonna press H to bring back the rest of the geometry. I'm gonna press A to deselect. I'm gonna press Z, and then I'm gonna select solid to go back to a solid view. I'm then going to click here and then click here to go back to material view. Okay, I'm going to click here. With the tongue selected, I'm going to click select. I'm then going to go to materials, then click here and then click assign. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here to go to Texture Paint. I'm going to press F to push my mouse in to shrink my brush. I'm going to press F again to shrink it more. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm then going to hover here, press S to sample this color here. And now I'm just going to paint this in right here. It's a shadow. As far as I know. Okay, we just added to our paint here. So what we want to do is click here, go to UV editing. We want to click image. See that little symbol right there? Means we need to save this file. So we can just click save image. Now I'm going to click here and go back to our default view. Then I'm going to click here. I'm going to have our mouth shut right there. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to click here, go back to object mode. You know, you can click here, you can mix and match your shape keys to make different facial expressions. You can vary, you know, how wide your eyes are open. Okay, if you wanted to turn down your specularity, you can just click here. Click here. It says specular here. You can just take this intensity down like that. Okay, I'm going to click only render. I'm then going to click this button here to take away the manipulator. Okay guys, hopefully from this you'll be able to make your own, you know, cartoon cat or other different cartoon versions of characters. I think these eyes add a lot to the cartoon effect. Yeah, obviously the more time you put into it, you'll get better results. Okay guys, that's it for that tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel and reshare them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe and thank you for viewing.